Lovely, brilliant. Right, I'll crack on. So yeah, today's session, it probably won't be 40 minutes, although I could probably talk for 40 minutes. It's just an introduction to Jenkins pipelines. So today we're just going to set up a new pipeline. We actually aren't going to configure the access token. I added it on and then realized I didn't need it, so I've taken it off. We're going to set up the webhook though. So every time you do a commit in Git, it then goes to Jenkins and says there's been a commit, run the next steps in the pipeline, and we'll see that happening. Yeah, we'll watch the pipeline in action, and we're going to use a Jenkins file. So we're going to build up what we want on the command line within the pipeline box with sort of commands, and then I'll just admit people. And then as we go through, we'll take that and make that into a Jenkins file inside our GitHub repo, and then we'll use the SCM option of the pipeline to pull it down from our GitHub repo. So nothing's local on Jenkins; it pulls it all in remotely. And so this is a basic outline of what we're going to do. So this is sort of us on the left. We're going to be doing some code commits, and this is what it will look like. It's going to push it to GitHub. That fires a webhook off to Jenkins. Jenkins sort of pulls down the code and does a SSHs onto the box and runs the commands I want to run. So if you've got something else in mind, it'll do that. And then we then check our website and we can see that it's been updated. We're not doing any testing or anything. It's literally just a very basic kind of commit, and then the actions go through and do what we want to do at the other end. So if you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. There's my LinkedIn profile. I can put all this. I'll make this available at the end, probably on the LinkedIn page if anyone wants it. You can follow the company page too. It's not really a company page, it's just our meetup page, but it has to be a company page on LinkedIn, and also our YouTube channel, which is getting bigger actually. Cancel this. So the YouTube channel is, we've got I have a version of this video on there already. You could, how to do system processes, how to set up AWX in Minikube. That's like the Kubernetes version, or if you want version 17, you can do that. Elk Stack, there's loads of videos, plus all the previous talks also appear here, so you can sort of come back and catch up. So if you want to, just subscribe to that. You'll see the new videos. You'll see this video when it becomes available if there's something that you wanted to go back and check. So, hi Susie. Right, yeah. So check out the YouTube channel. This video will be on there as well as loads of others. So let's have a quick look. Right, so what we're going to cover today is all going to be in this gist, which I need to go and get. Hold on. What is? I'll make this available in the chat, and then you can all sort of follow along, try it out. So pump over this one. Okay, so this is the gist that we're going to follow today, and I'll put it into the chat as well, so you've got a link to it. Okay, so give it that. Okay, so what we need for this demo is going to be a Jenkins server. We need a GitHub account because obviously we're using Git as our sort of webhook mechanism, and then also a web server in this case just to display the results on. So I'm going to log into Git in a minute. This is our GitHub repo. Feel free to fork it. I forked it off another guy, and it is quite old. You'll like this one, and it looks like this, which is really kind of retro, not cool. I don't know. So I get all the admit people. So hi Matt. Okay, so we've got Jenkins, we've got GitHub, and we've got our web server. So back to the gist. What did I move this? That's why it disappeared. It's over here. So I'll make it into another screen. So we shouldn't need to log into any servers today. The only one thing you do need to set up is the ability of the Jenkins server to SSH using a key or a PEM key or a SSH key to the server that we're going to be updating, because I'm not going to use any credentials. It's all done through a PEM key for me. We're going to cover up setting up a pipeline, set up a few demo stages just so you can see how to build up the stages. It's really, really simple. Then we're not going to create the access token, but we're going to create the webhook, and then we're going to update the pipeline to run it from SCM Git Jenkins file. Then we're going to set up the webhook and see the pipelining action. So it's going to be, it shouldn't take too long, and it's relatively simple and straightforward. So if you happen to have a Jenkins server, you can follow through this section with the same gist. So the first thing to do is just log into Jenkins. So this is a new build. If you want to build a Jenkins server, you can check out a video on my YouTube channel, and I think it's up here, I think. So there's the channel, and then there's the how to build a Jenkins server. So the first thing is log in. Nice and simple. It's just a lab environment, nothing amazing about it. And then the next section is just create a new name, a new job, and give it a new name. And I'm going to call it web app and pipeline, and do OK. And that takes us to this page. So the next step is to go to the Jenkins Pipeline Getting Started page, which is here, and just borrow this code. So just take all of this and pop it into this lower section here, and save it, and then do a build now. And what you'll see is hopefully a little box pop up. Hello, Seth. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so this is the very first stage, and that didn't take very much effort. So what we're going to do now is just build it up so we've got more than one stage. So I've got some code here. I'm just going to use this. This is going to create 3 stages for us. So we go back into configure and scroll down again, remove all this, and just replace it with mine. And we're going to save that. Now when we run build now, we should see 3 stages jump in, and because they're not doing anything, they'll be very quick. So we see we've got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then the next step is to actually get those stages to do something. So I'm just building up nice and easily. So if we go back into configure, and we're going to replace each of these stages. So the first stage, I'm going to do a clone on Jenkins. This is just to make sure that we've got connectivity. Copy that, pop that in, and just save it. So just a quick bit of detail. Yeah, so this is me just giving it a different name from stage 1. Here where it says clone the repo, and then we're going to delete an HTML directory if it exists, and then we're just going to clone into it. So it's just really just making sure that we can, it's like a dummy stage really. It's just making sure that Jenkins can pull down the code. So now that's in, we can do build now, and it errored. And I know it's going to error because there's a typo in my code. So if we go back to configure, I just wanted to, sorry, not to configure, to the output of the code. So there's a little drop down menu here, and you can just click on console output. So we've got this error, and it's quite obvious. It's saying that it's expecting a single quote, because in my code I forgot to add one in. So I just wanted you to see that error, and then not be too worried about it. So if we go back to configure, all we need to do is to stick a single quote in there, and then save it and build. And then this should run again. There it is. So when it finishes, it will take on a different color, as long as it's successful. Still running. And it also changes the outlook. So before we had stage 1, 2, and 3. Now we've given it like a new name. It's created a new table for us. Okay, and that's finished. So we see it's now got the new name. Still got stage 2 and 3 there. So if we look at the console output now, I can find my mouse. There it is. We can see that it did the clone, and then stage 2 and stage 3 didn't do anything, and it was a successful pipeline, which is great. So now I'm going to just replace stage 2 and stage 3. So stage 2 is SSHing into my remote server. So it's just an EC2 box with my PEM key, and it's running this remote command, which just does a git pull, and the -c option just lets you put in a directory. So it does a git pull, but instead of me CDing to a directory, I can use -c, and it will pull it down into that directory for me. And that directory is where the web server, where all that information lives. So if I copy that and just go back into configure and take out and update my 2 stages. That one, and then the last one. So the last one's just a check really. It just does a curl, and we're looking for an OK message to make sure that the website's up. It's kind of like another dummy stage that isn't really needed and doesn't really do anything, but shows you that we can add different jobs doing different things to a workflow. So let's save that. If we do build now, as long as I haven't made any mistakes, it should just recreate this table, and then build through. So you can go to, it has finished. Let's have a look. So if you go to the output, you can see that it's done the clone. It's connected to my remote server, and it's pulled down. So there was a file change. And then when we looked at the server, we've got the OK message. So it's run through all three different sections. So if we go to the test server, it is still up. That's good. So we haven't broken anything. So that, in essence, is a pipeline. You know, it's doing a set of jobs for us. These could be anything. I've just picked SSHing onto a box and running commands. But if you're using other applications, then you would just take these out and do the thing that you want to do. Yeah, and obviously test it. You might need some sort of API. You could probably use an API or access keys or anything. But it would be a similar process to this, but just using your commands. So we've done this one. That's what it should look like for this demo once it's complete. So now we can set up the webhook. So in GitHub, we're going to go into our repo and we're going to follow some steps to create the webhook. So this is the repo, web app 1 it's called. If we go into settings and go down to webhook, you can see that I haven't got any webhooks yet. So if I just add the webhook, and I think I've given myself all the stuff. Yeah, so the webhook itself is pretty much the URL of this, including the port. So this is our Jenkins server, plus this GitHub webhook. So if you that, and that builds it up, and we just want to do push events, and we're going to add the webhook in. Click on it, and yeah, so we've got a tick. So that tick means that it's been successful. So I think it goes off and does a exploratory sort of check to make sure that there's something at the other end and it's been successful. So that's hopefully good. So we've added our webhook. Then back in Jenkins, we just need to modify our pipeline. So back into Jenkins. What's first? I think it will be open the pipeline, click configure. So if you go back to the dashboard, you want to open up your pipeline, click on configure, and then in this section here, we're going to tick the GitHub hook trigger for the polling. That's the build trigger. And then in the next section, yeah, so we've done the build trigger and the GitHub hook trigger for Git SCM. And then if we scroll down, we're going to change this pipeline. In fact, one thing I'll do first is copy this, and in GitHub, I'm going to create a new file. So just create a simple file, and it wants it to be called JenkinsFile. I'll show you this in a second. With a capital J, JenkinsFile, and in here we already know it works, so we're just going to add the code that we've already used and save that. I'm just going to commit that as a new file. Right, so that's now here, ready to go. So back in here, I'm going to delete all this, so it's not there. I'm going to do a pipeline script from SCM. And what we need to add in here is the SCM is Git. The repo is the same one you'd use to do a clone. Just copy that and pop that in. And we don't need any credentials. It's just going to be the master branch, but you could change it if you've got something else you want to use. And it's going to look for JenkinsFile, and that's the same file that's here. And we should save that. And where am I? Okay, here. So we've saved the pipeline. All right, so we've created the Jenkins file and we've populated the file. So I'm going to attempt to build the pipeline now. So now it's going to go off to Git and pull down that Jenkins file. So if there's any problems, this is where it will hit. So build now. Hopefully this will go through the process. Yeah, so we can see we've got a new check now. Just check out of SCM. It's going to clone the repo, try and do an update, and then do a quick check on to see if the web page is available. Okay, so it's worked. So if we have a look at the output, we can see that, see if there's any changes. It's done a local clone. Oh yes, this is it going off to GitHub with that the SCM where it pulls down the Jenkins file. You can see that it's done a pull, and that the website is up. So we haven't changed anything yet, but we know that that workflow works. So we come back to the project, got successful workflow. So now the next thing to do is to test to make sure the GitHub webhook works. So if we just go into GitHub and we just make a change, so let's change the index.html, edit this. So normally you wouldn't be editing it inside the code, you'd be doing something you know, on a command line or in an application, and then saving that data as a commit, and then that would then kick off the pipeline. So I'm just going to copy, actually let's copy 2 of these. Let's put down, before I do anything, let's just refresh. So that's there, and then this one just do CICD, and then commit those changes. And then on git commit, with what we've done, yep, there it is, it's pending. So it's already popped in. So this is the magic of webhooks. That should start to, yep, that's starting now. It looks like it's finished, but it's taking time to catch up. So if we go back to the test page and update, we can now see we've got automation CI/CD. So another quick test, let's edit it one more time. Take them out, commit it again, go back to Jenkins, and we should see number 8 pop in. There it is. And then it's running. You can follow it along as well, live in the logs. So you can see it's what it's doing. So that's it. So if we go back to the test page, we update, they're gone. So it's a real time how to set Jenkins up with Git for the webhook. Yeah, and that's it. There's not a lot to it. I'll make this video available shortly after. Yeah, so if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to ask now, or if you want to chat about something else, that's fine too. So yeah, I hope that was helpful to some of you guys. And hopefully you realize there isn't actually that much to it. You know, certainly when we were setting up the workflow in Git, we didn't need to connect to anything. It was all done in one little pipeline. And then to hook it up to Git isn't particularly difficult. You know, if you need to authentication, you can get access tokens and things like that from Git. So, so yeah, good question, VJ. So VJ's asked in the chat, he said, do we need any Groovy knowledge for the configurations? It is in Groovy. Let me go back to the, where's my mouse? There it is. Back to the project and configure. So I change it from here to this. So this is a Groovy. It's like expecting Groovy code. It would probably help. It depends what you want to do, really. If you're going to go for something really simple like this pipeline, then you already know what you need to know. But if you wanted to do something a bit more complicated, you know, I've seen more complicated ones than this, and it would probably help with the syntax and just know where everything needs to go. So I don't think specifically you need Groovy knowledge. There are lots of examples on the internet to find. So I would probably set something up, and then if it needs to do something else that you don't know how to do, then I'd go to trusty Google and borrow someone else's code probably to make it work. Hope that answers your question. Balaz, so is it possible to configure the webhook trigger to build upon merge on a certain branch, e.g. dev and QA? Yeah, so inside the oh yeah, you can do that. I guess this demo isn't about setting Jenkins up as a container. It's just about sorry, I'm looking at the question in the chat from Carol. Yeah, you would just use that in the normal way. This is, you'd still log into your application. Sorry, you'd still log into your application. Sorry, my dog hears the car doors shut outside, so he likes to bark. Yeah, so you'd still log into Jenkins, whether it's a container or like this is on a physical server, and you'd still set it up how you would normally set it up. You have all the options of Jenkins still available to you. But going back to the webhook one, so in the configuration. So if I change this, so I picked a master branch here. I'm pretty sure that if you change that to be a different branch name, it would probably have the same action. Is that what you mean? Build upon merge. Yeah. So I would just change it here. Obviously, master or main. You may be wanting to test, a pre-prod example, before you then merge that into production. So yeah, you could do that. Right. I guess just out of interest. Okay, so the Blue Ocean plugin. Okay, I might give that a go. Is that just something that we can install? This is for Oliver. So if we go to Jenkins.
Yeah, it's just something we've done. We use Jenkins as well, but we've got a bunch of tests that run, and we try and run all the tests in parallel, just to save time.
Okay.
You can't see that in the table because it's sequential.
Yeah.
Whereas in Blue Ocean, essentially, it's kind of nodes and edges, so you can really clearly see what's happening.
Is it called Blue Ocean?
Yeah.
Will that work? Why am I? Okay. Yeah. So what you can do, Jenkins has a lot of plugins. If you go to the Manage Jenkins tab and click on, I'll just let someone else in, and you go on to Manage Plugins, you can look at what you have installed. And when you install Jenkins for the first time, if you take the defaults, it will install a whole bunch of pretty popular ones anyway. And then you can see what's available, any updates, and you should be able to search in here for them. And it's quite handy up here. You get, it tells you that a new version's out, and also in the time I've had this running for a week, there's been an update about an issue. So I should look to probably fix that as well. But that's quite handy. So it lets you know what's going on as long as you've got access out to the internet. Yeah, nice one. All right. Well, has anyone got any other questions? You can speak if you want. You don't have to chat write it out in the chat. I might have looked at one. Oh yes, Seema.
I have a question, Dennis. I don't know if did you answer Carol's question?
To write it as a container. I think that I would probably ask Oliver about that, actually, to be honest, in terms of using that in the environment that he's got. Do you run it as containers with containerized apps as part of the process, Oliver, if you're around?
I might defer the question to Mark. He should be on here. He's in my team as well. I don't believe we do run it in a container. I think it's Jenkins is standalone, but everything else is containers. So we update our containers. Jenkins will essentially do a Docker pull to update our containers to the latest versions.
That's good.
But we don't run Jenkins as a container.
No, we have a dedicated server because it's Java, and because it could be doing multiple builds at the same time. So, yeah, it's responsible for building containers, but it doesn't run. But I don't see why you couldn't run it in a container.
Yeah, I have seen it.
I suppose it depends what you want to do with it, really.
Yeah. So I was going to say, maybe you could, if you want to. I'm always looking for people that do talks. That might be. I think Jenkins itself is quite an interesting topic because it's kind of a free orchestration engine to do lots of different things. I know there's other ones that do it, and I think GitLab is getting in on the act as well with some of the stuff. Is it Actions or is that GitHub Actions and GitLab? Something else I can't remember the name of. But if you do something interesting and you want to build a little lab environment and do a demo, I'd be happy to, give you time in one of these sessions, or maybe in an evening as well. You want to?
Yeah, I don't profess to be an expert, but ours did grow. It has grown arms and legs. It does all sorts. It pushes notifications to teams and results.
I have set up like you can get webhooks for Slack as well. So if you've got a team Slack channel, you can, every time it runs, you can get it to tell you if it was successful or not. Things like that.
we used to use Slack and it was brilliant, and but then we had to migrate to Teams as a company policy. So, it's the same difference. Yeah, it can give you sort of updates on statuses and things. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite good. Maybe yeah, maybe I'll have a think about.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right, nice one, Mark.
Dennis, the picture I just pasted into the chat.
Yep, let me have a look.
That's just to show the parallel steps.
Okay. Maybe to save it for everyone.
Yeah, it's quite neat. We found it saved us a vast amount of time. We used to do everything sequentially. And then the lines at the top would be your boxes on the other screen you were just showing.
Yeah, so is it this section here, like the build?
Yeah, so like build would be a heading, a table heading, and then test would be a table heading. Okay. But then equally, it would be JUnit, DB unit. I can't quite read the bottom one, but they would be one after the other in the table in Jenkins. Whereas in Blue Ocean, you can clearly see that they're parallel steps.
Yeah, so we'd have so that would translate to about 15 boxes on here, all in a long line. Yeah. Whereas this is actually slightly more intuitive about how it's running through the process. Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay, I'll have a look at that one. So Jenkins Blue Ocean. Okay. Yeah.
We found it a lifesaver because it makes stuff so much easier to follow. Yeah,
it's almost the equivalent of running like 100 forks in Ansible instead of the default 5 that you get when you're trying to collect a lot of information at the same time or run on a lot of servers. Yeah, I can imagine. Save a hell of a lot, especially if you've got quite a complicated process. Yeah. Okay. So everyone, if you check out Blue Ocean as well, if you're doing multiple operations as part of the same stage. Yeah. So with that broke down in what I've done here, if I go to the Jenkins file, it's here. Let me go on here now. Sorry. In the Jenkins file. So I guess I'd have to look at the plugin, but would it treat these three as three separate jobs underneath? I guess it's...
Yes, each one of them would go from left to right. Yeah. And if you had any stages that you ran in parallel, then yeah, you'd find they sort of stacked top to bottom as you go along.
Right. Yeah, I might give that a go actually, because it's a bit of a smarter way of working. I think just bypass this and go straight to something like that. It's just a free plugin that is available on Jenkins, is it?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, correct.
Nice. Good. Right.
Okay, I want to ask my question now.
Yeah, go for it.
So I still think Jenkins is the most powerful CICD, but now we have GitHub Actions and Argo CD and lots of other CICDs for AWS and IBM. But can you tell what are the advantages of still using Jenkins? I imagine it is still the most powerful one. Or what do you think?
I've heard. I think it's going to be whoever came in and designed whatever it is you're doing. They had a favorite tool, and that's the one that they're using. And then everyone else has had to suffer under that tool since then. I would imagine if you've got stuff set up in pipelines in Jenkins or something similar, it's very difficult to migrate off that potentially. Yeah, Jenkins is probably the most well-known because it's been around for a long time. I think it infuriates a lot of people. I think Circle CI has come up. I know it's a paid-for product, but I know people in companies that don't mind paying for something that is potentially easier to use and easier to set up and a bit more, it kind of understands what you want to do. Like Jenkins is dumb, but I think like Circle CI, and I haven't used it, I think it can kind of manage what you want to do a lot easier. It's easier to set up those workflows. It's a bit more intuitive as using it. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the time you're probably stuck with what's available, to be honest. If it's Jenkins and that's what they use and there isn't anything else, then it's going to be really tricky to use a new tool, especially when getting all the access set up and firewall rules and everything else that you need for the environment. But I suspect there are better ones. Circle CI might be better. As freebies go, I just haven't used a lot of the other ones, so I just don't know. Is anyone else on the call that's used different sort of orchestration tools like Jenkins?
We moved from Circle CI to Jenkins.
Okay. Is it quite expensive? I don't know how much it costs, or was that a reason, or was it just use case?
I think it was quite expensive, wasn't it, Ollie?
Yeah, I don't have an exact figure, but we were talking a couple of thousand.
Okay.
Pounds a year.
Okay, so it's not. I mean, for a big organisation, I don't know how big organisation you work for, but it doesn't sound like a lot of money. Was it people were more familiar with Jenkins?
Our primary issue was we wanted sort of like a cloud-based product. We happened to have installed it on premise, but we were looking for that move, and at the time there was no way of moving from on-premise Circle CI to like SaaS-based Circle CI. So the fact we had to essentially start again meant we reevaluated our options.
Yeah, and are you pleased that you did the change, or do you miss something that Circle CI gave you?
The one thing, just to counter your point from a few minutes ago, we wrote a lot of our stages within our code base. So a bit like you when you made your Jenkins file, and then essentially it's managed by your code. We did that. So we have like a stage called run tests, which essentially is like a bash file, which meant moving from Circle CI to Jenkins took Mark, well, half a day, probably less.
So you actually had everything that worked in the right.
Yeah, because essentially we weren't dependent on Circle CI. I can see what you've done here, though. If you wrote all your logic into your Jenkins file, you'd become a bit stuck.
Yeah, true. I mean, I guess you probably could, because I'm only running shell commands pretty much. I probably could do something similar to what you've done and just run that instead.
I mean, we've kept going with that policy just in case we ever wanted to move again, and I think it's quite good.
Yeah, that's like the thing you should do at the start before you spend 5 years doing something one way. You know, yeah, I like that idea actually setting up it as a bash script or some script, and not necessarily relying on the tool. Yeah, I guess locking yourself in. Yeah, that's another good idea. Anyone else use any of the other orchestration tools?
I mean, the only other thing I was going to say, sort of in favour of, you know, what you're doing is, I suppose it's what you're using the tool for, because if you're doing a lot of time intensive and resource intensive kind of building of images and things like that, then it could get quite expensive using one of the the bundled ones with whatever repository you're using. Whereas I suppose Jenkins, once you've got it running, it's just kind of there. I mean, we do a lot of parallel stuff on it, and when we've tweaked the settings a bit, and it does work quite well. I mean, I think what's our build at the minute, Ollie? Is it about 10 or 15 minutes or something for an end to end?
Yeah, roughly.
So if we were doing that on an off-premise cloud-based thing, then it could rack up a bit of a cost. So I suppose it's really just what you're up to with it. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, cheers. Glad you guys. Yeah. Sorry, Seema, go on.
Sorry. We also had Concourse for front-end pipeline. Also, now we are looking into Argo CD, because that's the most that's the one that uses the whole power of Kubernetes. If you're using Kubernetes, that's the one for Kubernetes. So we're looking into it. But honestly, I prefer to stick to one instead of learning so many different ones.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Again, it comes back to use case, doesn't it? If you're trying to do stuff within Kubernetes, it might be easier to use the tool if Argo CD, if that's the one that's easier to set up and work with when you're using Kubernetes. I'm not sure what it's like to work with Kubernetes and Jenkins. It might be more straightforward using that, I guess. I haven't tried. Okay. Has anyone else got anything else anything else they'd like to say, or a point or anything?
Raj here. I'm Paulo, Oliver Grist, and Mark Phelan. We're all a bunch of people here. And Ollie, Mark, I don't know who has the answer for that. Wasn't the issue again we had with Circle CI that the build times were significantly more than what we had in Jenkins? Because I recall when we used to do with Circle CI, those tests used to take on an average 10 minutes plus. And with Jenkins, we brought that down to about 1.5 minutes. I'm not sure, was that because of the configuration of our Circle CI, or was that just a performance boost we got because of Jenkins? If you just want to comment.
Yeah, we did start to have a few reliability issues and performance issues with Circle CI, and their support wasn't brilliant when we kind of had to speak to them. But we did, when we moved to Jenkins, we did some of the tasks that were repeatable. We sort of kind of pre-staged those. So rather than building an image from scratch, we sort of had a pre-provisioned image that we pulled in and stuff. So yeah, there are optimizations you can make to it as well. Yeah.
And was CircleCI able to run in parallel like the Blue Ocean plugin?
That's a good question.
Not in the same way. So in Jenkins, you just say how many you want. So you could say I want 5, and it will do 5 in parallel.
Right.
In CircleCI, you had to add like builder servers, and then each builder could do another one.
Right.
So moving to Jenkins, we just basically gave it quite a powerful server. Yeah. And I think we gave it like 10 or something. So we can do quite a lot of builds in parallel.
Okay. Did you reach a limit, I guess, in terms of sizing, like memory limits or?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that Mark did, which was really beneficial, is our first step is to check, are there any other builds for the, so if we're all building on develop, which typically we are when we merge stuff, is to say check for any other current builds and kill them and just build the latest, because the interim build is irrelevant. Yeah, it will never get used. So that helped a lot, and that really reduced our parallel running.
Yeah, I think.
There's a setting you can do to not do the default checkout. So I do that, and then I delay. So yeah, I then do a check. Are there any other jobs for this same branch running? And if there are, I cancel those and then do the checkout. So. Yeah, I've done quite a lot of hacking around with Jenkins to kind of bend it to work. But yeah, it's and that's what's nice about it, is that you do have that flexibility. So yeah,
it's like you bring up another point that that you can actually faff around and make it work. That you couldn't necessarily do in something like CircleCI. So that's another good point. So we're Jenkins lovers here, I guess. In a way.
Yeah, I'm converted. Yeah. It's I think like Ollie said, the Blue Ocean interface is much nicer, but I find there are some things that are hidden. So I tend to just navigate around the kind of classic interface for stuff. But yeah, I think from a user perspective, if you just want to see statuses and things, the Blue Ocean UI is really quite good. Yeah.
Right. If anyone has anything else, now's the time. Thanks, Mark, Ollie. That was good. I'm glad you were here.
You're welcome.
One more message. If a hard stop on Jenkins day to day, how can I get support? Probably Stack Overflow, I'd say, for Jenkins issues. Is there anywhere, when you get issues, is there anywhere you go, Mark, or anything, or Ollie, to?
I guess Mark, to be honest.
No, I mean there is a lot of yes, Stack Overflow or some of the forums and things, because generally there's someone that's figured it out.
It's probably not the first time. Yeah.
I mean, I think the only problem I've ever had with it was once when I did an upgrade and it lost all our job config, which was really annoying. So although we had our Jenkins file was in source control, I sort of lost, all the job configuration with where it went for that. But yeah.
It always gives you an opportunity to build back a little bit better when those things happen.
Yeah.
You probably slimline it a little bit,
I don't know if it was better or more frantic trying to get things up and running again. So.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, for coming along. It's not a bad showing for a Friday lunchtime. I wasn't expecting as many, to be honest. I guess there's no football yet. England tomorrow, so.